Anger is something we all experience. It rises quickly, sometimes without warning, and takes control of our thoughts and actions. But have you ever wondered where anger truly comes from? Is it something that exists on its own, or is it created by our mind? Imagine someone says something unkind to you. The words enter your ears, but in that moment, they have no power. It is only when your mind interprets those words, giving them meaning, that anger begins to grow. The same words spoken to someone else may not cause the same reaction. This shows that anger is not in the words themselves, but in how we receive them. Often, we believe anger is caused by something outside of us: a rude person, an unfair situation, or a painful memory. But in truth, anger is born from within. It is a response, shaped by our past experiences, expectations, and beliefs. When we think, "This should not be happening," or "I don't deserve this," anger arises. The stronger we hold on to these thoughts, the more our anger grows. Think about fire. A fire needs fuel to keep burning. Without wood, it cannot continue. Anger is the same. It needs something to hold on to: a story, a judgment, a sense of injustice. The more we repeat these thoughts in our minds, the stronger our anger becomes. But if we begin to see anger for what it is, just a temporary state of mind, then it loses its power. Anger often disguises itself as strength, but in reality, it blinds us. When we are angry, we cannot see clearly. We speak harsh words, make unwise decisions, and create suffering for ourselves and others. Yet, if we take a step back and observe our anger without acting on it, something interesting happens. We start to see it as just another emotion, no different from happiness or sadness. It comes and goes, like waves in the ocean. Understanding the nature of anger is the first step toward freeing ourselves from its control. Instead of seeing it as an enemy, we can begin to recognize it as a teacher. Anger reveals what is important to us, what we fear, and where we still struggle to accept life as it is. When we understand this, we can start to change our relationship with anger. When anger arises, it does not stay in the mind alone. It spreads through the whole body, changing how we feel, how we breathe, and even how we see the world. Anger is not just an emotion. It is an experience that affects every part of us. Think about the last time you were truly angry. How did your body react? Maybe your heart started beating faster, your muscles tightened, and your breathing became shallow. Your body was preparing for a fight, as if it were facing a real danger. But was there a physical enemy in front of you? Most of the time, anger is triggered by words, thoughts, or memories, not by anything physically threatening. Yet our body reacts as if we are in immediate danger. This reaction comes from a deep part of the brain, an ancient survival mechanism designed to protect us. Long ago, this response helped humans escape real dangers, like wild animals or enemies. But in modern life, this same response is triggered by things like an insult, a disagreement, or frustration in traffic. Our body still reacts with the same intensity, even when the danger is not real. Now consider what anger does to the mind. When we are angry, our thoughts become narrow and focused on the cause of our anger. We replay the event again and again, strengthening our feelings. We may imagine arguments, think of ways to take revenge, or believe that we are completely right, and the other person is wrong. This makes us feel more separate from others, more isolated in our own suffering. Over time, repeated anger leaves a lasting effect. It increases stress, raises blood pressure, and can even weaken the immune system. Some studies suggest that people who hold on to anger for long periods are more likely to develop heart disease and other health problems. More than that, anger damages relationships. It makes us say things we later regret, turning small disagreements into deep conflicts. But perhaps the greatest harm anger does is to our sense of peace. When we are caught in anger, we lose the ability to experience the present moment fully. Instead of enjoying what is in front of us, we carry the weight of past hurts and imagined battles. If we truly see how anger affects us, we begin to question whether holding on to it is worth the cost. This brings us to an important question. What are the real causes behind our anger? Anger does not appear without reason. Like a tree growing from a seed, anger has its roots, causes and conditions that bring it to life. If we want to free ourselves from anger, we must look deeply and understand where it comes from. Imagine someone cuts in front of you in traffic. Immediately, you feel a surge of anger. But why? Is it because of the action itself? If you were in a peaceful mood, you might not care at all. But if you were already stressed or in a hurry, the same action might feel like an attack. This shows that anger is not simply about what happens to us. It is about how we interpret and react to those events. One of the main causes of anger is expectation. We expect people to treat us fairly, to be kind, to follow the rules. When they do not, we feel wronged. But are our expectations always realistic? The world does not move according to our desires. People make mistakes. They act out of their own struggles and ignorance. If we hold too tightly to our expectations, we will always find reasons to be angry. Another cause of anger is attachment to the idea of self. When someone insults us, why do we feel hurt? It is because we have a strong sense of I, our name, our status, our beliefs, our pride. When someone challenges this, we feel attacked. But what if we did not take everything so personally? If someone calls you a bad name, does it really change who you are? If we loosen our attachment to the self, we create space between us and our anger. Past experiences also shape our reactions. If we were treated unfairly in the past, we might be quick to feel anger in similar situations. Old wounds can make small incidents feel much bigger than they are, but we must ask ourselves, is this anger about the present, or is it about something long gone? The more we hold on to the past, the more it controls us. Understanding the causes of anger does not mean ignoring it. It means seeing it clearly, without being controlled by it. When we recognize that anger comes from within, not just from outside events, we begin to take responsibility for our emotions. So how can we change our reaction to anger? When anger arises, our first instinct is often to react immediately. We raise our voice, tense our body, or let our thoughts spiral into blame and frustration. But what if, instead of reacting, we simply observed our anger? What if we could notice it without becoming lost in it? The first step in transforming anger is awareness. When anger appears, take a moment to recognize it. Say to yourself, "This is anger." Just naming the emotion creates distance between you and the feeling. It reminds you that anger is not who you are. It is something passing through you. Try to notice how anger feels in your body. Is your heart beating faster? Is your jaw tight? Are your hands clenched? Bringing attention to these physical sensations helps ground you in the present moment, instead of letting your thoughts fuel the emotion further. Next, observe your thoughts. When anger rises, the mind often tells a story. This is unfair. They should not have done that. I have every right to be angry. These thoughts make anger stronger. Instead of following them, simply notice them. You do not have to believe every thought that appears in your mind. Breathing is a powerful tool. When you feel anger rising, take a slow, deep breath, then another. With each breath, imagine creating space around your anger. Instead of letting it take over, allow it to be there without feeding it. This simple practice helps to calm the body and create clarity in the mind. Another way to transform anger is to shift your perspective. Ask yourself, what is causing this person to act this way? Often, people act out of their own pain, stress, or ignorance. Maybe they were hurt by someone else. Maybe they are struggling in ways you cannot see. This does not excuse harmful actions, but it helps us understand that anger often comes from suffering. Also, ask yourself, will my anger improve this situation? Sometimes, strong action is needed to address a problem, but anger often clouds our judgment. If we respond with awareness instead of raw emotion, we are more likely to act wisely. Transforming anger does not mean suppressing it. It means seeing it clearly, understanding its causes, and choosing not to be controlled by it. When we do this, we begin to take back our freedom. Understanding anger is one thing, but applying this knowledge in everyday life is another. When someone insults us, when we feel ignored, or when things do not go our way, how do we put this understanding into practice? The first step is to notice small moments of irritation before they turn into full anger. Often, anger starts as a tiny frustration, an email we do not like, a delay in plans, someone's careless words. If we catch this early, we have a chance to respond differently. Instead of letting frustration build, we can pause and take a breath. In that moment, we can ask ourselves, is this worth my peace? Another practice is to become more aware of our triggers. Certain people or situations make us angry more easily. It might be a particular colleague, a family member, or even a recurring situation, like waiting in traffic. When we recognize our triggers, we can prepare ourselves. If we know a difficult conversation is coming, we can remind ourselves beforehand, I will not let anger control me. This does not mean ignoring our feelings, but rather choosing how we want to respond. We can also practice letting go of small things. Not every battle is worth fighting. If a stranger is rude, do we need to hold on to that anger all day? If someone cuts us off in traffic, does our anger change anything? Every time we let go of a small irritation, we build the habit of peace. Communication is another key. Many conflicts arise because of misunderstandings. Before reacting in anger, we can ask, what did you mean by that? Or, can you explain? Often, what we assume is an attack is simply a miscommunication. By staying open instead of defensive, we prevent unnecessary anger. Practicing patience is also important. Anger often comes from wanting things to be different right away. But some problems take time to solve. Some people take time to understand us. If we accept that not everything will change immediately, we reduce frustration. Finally, ending the day with reflection can be helpful. Before sleeping, take a moment to ask, was there a moment today when I let anger control me? This is not to judge ourselves harshly, but to learn. Each day is a new chance to respond with greater understanding. When we bring awareness to our daily lives, anger loses its grip on us. Releasing anger is not about denying it or forcing it away. It is about understanding it so deeply that it no longer has power over us. When we stop seeing anger as something to fight against, and instead as something to learn from, it begins to lose its hold. Imagine carrying a heavy stone in your hand. At first, you grip it tightly because you believe you must. But over time, your hand grows tired, and the weight becomes painful. Then you realize, no one is forcing you to hold it. You can simply let it go. This is how anger works. The more we hold on to it, the more we suffer. But when we see that we are the ones carrying it, we also realize we have the power to release it. Letting go of anger does not mean allowing others to mistreat us. It does not mean ignoring injustice. But it means choosing not to let anger consume us. We can respond to difficult situations with wisdom instead of reacting with blind emotion. One of the most powerful realizations is that we do not control others. We cannot force people to be kind. We cannot make the world perfectly fair. But we can control how we respond. When we stop expecting the world to move according to our desires, we stop creating unnecessary suffering for ourselves. Releasing anger also opens the door to greater joy. When we are not holding on to resentment, we have more space in our hearts for peace. We begin to appreciate simple things: the warmth of the sun, the sound of the wind, the smile of a stranger. We live more fully in the present because we are no longer trapped by past hurts. This path is not easy. It takes patience. Sometimes anger will return, and that is okay. Each time it appears, we have a new opportunity to practice. We can notice it, understand it, and choose not to be controlled by it. True freedom is not about changing the world to fit our expectations. It is about changing how we experience the world. When we no longer let anger dominate our hearts, we find a deep peace that is not shaken by external events. This peace is always available to us if we are willing to see clearly and let go. The journey of understanding anger is really the journey of understanding ourselves. And when we do, we discover that beyond anger, beyond frustration, there is something far greater waiting for us, a life lived with clarity, balance, and peace. Anger is something we all experience, but it does not have to control us. Through understanding, we can transform our relationship with anger, seeing it not as an enemy, but as a teacher. It shows us where we struggle, what we value, and where we still have room to grow. Instead of reacting to anger blindly, we can learn to observe it, understand its causes, and let it go when it no longer serves us. This does not mean we will never feel anger again. But when it arises, we will meet it with awareness instead of resistance. We will recognize that anger is not a permanent state. It is something that comes and goes, like a passing storm. And just as the sky remains unchanged, no matter how strong the storm, our true nature is not shaken by temporary emotions. Living with greater peace does not happen overnight. It is a practice, something we cultivate little by little, moment by moment. Some days will be easier than others, but each time we pause before reacting, each time we see anger clearly, instead of being swept away by it, we take a step toward greater freedom. As we continue on this path, we may notice that life feels lighter. We may find ourselves more patient, more understanding, and less burdened by unnecessary suffering. The world does not always change, but our experience of it does. And that is where true peace begins, not outside, but within. For those who have taken the time to watch, listen, and reflect, I am deeply grateful. Your presence here means a great deal. Whether you have left a like, subscribed, shared your thoughts in the comments, or supported the channel through super thanks, please know that it is sincerely appreciated. Your engagement allows these teachings to reach more people, and for that, I am thankful. May you continue to walk this path with awareness and wisdom, and may each step bring you closer to a life of balance, clarity, and peace.